This is Dom Bettinelli, the CEO of SQPN, with a brief but very important message. For more than a decade, SQPN has produced the Catholic faith and pop culture podcasts that you love. We're a nonprofit organization, so it's only your generosity that lets us carry out our mission. We haven't run a fundraiser in 2 years, and that's why we need to ask for your help right now. Please make a pledge of whatever amount you can afford to help us continue providing your favorite podcasts, as well as exciting new ones we have planned. To make your pledge and find out about the free thank you gifts we'd like to send you, visit sqpn.com/give. That's sqpn.com/give. Thank you for your generosity. May we hear from you today? You're listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Firefly, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings of this TV show. Joining me today on the panel are Maria Johnson. Hi, Maria.
Hi, guys. It's a pleasure to be here, as always.
As always. Shelley. Kelly, how are you?
Doing great, Dom. Thanks so much.
And Mac Barron. Hello.
Hello. I aim to make some trouble.
So I have to say that the idea for doing this episode came from a listener, actually, who sent an email and said, someday could you please do a Secrets of Firefly? And I said, that is a great idea, and I'm not sure why we didn't think of it before. And so we decided to do that. So Secrets of Firefly, this is we're going to talk about the whole 15 episode season, the maybe a little bit about the movie, but we're not going to do any part of the whole thing too much. We're going to talk from a high level, and hey, if things go well, we may come back and do a say 15, 16 episode Secrets of Firefly series. So let us know what you think when we're all said and done, if you'd like to hear more about Firefly. Before we get into that, as I usually do, I want to remind you to like Secrets of Movies and TV Shows on Facebook. As we post the show on Facebook, go to the SQPN Facebook page and like and share the show there. To retweet it on Twitter if you can. Write a comment. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. I mean, if you got to listen to it, you got to subscribe to it and get it on your phone or on your computer. So subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app. Even on YouTube, we post it there as a audio only video, but some people like to listen to it there. And if you do subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell to get the notifications so you know when we post it. And then please share the podcast with your friends to help us grow the community of listeners, reach more people. That's what we're here for, and we really appreciate it. One other business note before we get going. SQPN is in the midst of our giving campaign. We are a nonprofit organization. We're focused on bringing, how do I put it? I say this 100 times a day, and I have trouble saying it. But what I mean to say is, SQPN is a nonprofit that focuses on the intersection between faith and pop culture. When we discuss the Secrets of Firefly, we're talking about it as fans, but we're also coming at it from a particular viewpoint of Catholic Christians, and sometimes that comes into play, and we look at things from that point of view. We're not, digging into it and saying, "Oh, this is clearly a theological point." We don't do that stuff, as you know from listening. But what we're trying to do is trying to build bridges and have fun. And if you like the shows that we're doing, if you like Secrets of Movies and TV Shows, Secrets of Star Trek, Secrets of Doctor Who, and our newest show, Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, which is going gangbusters, people love it. Please help us continue. We rely on listeners like you to do this. The fact is to do this many shows that we do, and the amount of work that we do requires at least one full-time person, and that's me. And plus, we have to pay for hosting and for equipment and for software and for lots of other things that go into this. And so if you can help us, we'd appreciate it. It helps us continue. If you like these podcasts, help them continue by going to sqpn.com/give. Click on the Patreon button there, become a patron. And if you become a patron, you can, there are at certain levels, we have gifts available for people in different categories. something from Doctor Who, something from Star Trek, something from Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, different books and other items. So please go to sqpn.com/give, and we greatly appreciate it. All right. Business is out of the way.
Are you done? Are you done paying the bills? Can we talk about this show now?
Hey, if everyone runs out and gives enough to clear us for our giving campaign, next week I won't talk about any of that because I don't want to talk about it. But I want to talk about Firefly. So for those of you who may be younger and don't remember, Firefly was a TV show that aired on the Fox network starting in 2002, September 2002. It premiered by Joss Whedon, was the producer back when he was only known for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and only I say, but after that he became the Marvel king of Marvel movies. But he started this show. It was an unusual sci-fi show. It aired on the Fox network, and it only lasted 15 episodes. And yet, we're talking about it here 17 years later. So the quick recap is it's a future that looks a lot like the past. It's a future version of post-Civil War America where former rebels from the defeated side try to make their way in a galaxy run by their former enemies. So that sort of idea. We can get into the details of exactly how the premise of it. But why are we still talking about this 17 years later? What made this show, this canceled show after just a few episodes, stick with us so long? What do you all think? Maria, I'll go to you first. What do you think is why we're doing this? Why this is still here?
I think it's because of the compelling characters. I mean, the storylines are great. The concept reminds me a little bit of what Roddenberry said was the concept for Star Trek, which was Wagon Train in the Stars. But actually, this is Wagon Train in the Stars. It is a cowboy movie in its practicality, but it's the characters. I love the characters, and I can't wait to get into talking about them, because for me, the relationships and the I don't know, I guess the ensemble is what really drives it.
Okay, how about you, Mac? Why is this endured for you?
It's as Marie said. I will add to that the space western is sort of unique enough, but then you have these characters that they're not just rote. You don't have. I mean, it's not the cast of Friends where you have to have a male idiot and a female idiot, and
Right.
you have to match these people up together. Though that does happen. I mean, you do have these tropes, like there's a Sam and Diane dynamic going on, and you do have a character who is funny, but then you have characters, you have real people of faith in the midst of this sort of compelling milieu. I mean, they're out in space and they're doing train jobs. And so it's like Ocean's 11 meets Battlestar Galactica, meets Cheers, meets all these different things that you know and love, and it's just lightning in a bottle. And then you have really charismatic actors pulling off very compelling characters. So it's all of these things together. And then they made a movie. And so whenever you make a movie about it, everything's even prettier than it was in the sort of low budget television show. It just all adds up to, I want more. I want to watch it again. This was the best homework I've ever had in my life, going back and looking at a couple episodes.
How about you, Shelley? What is it about the show that endures for you?
Well, I agree with them about the characters, but I also have to say it's the world building. It's the way he's able to create a world that you could picture even when the TV's off. You think about it, you imagine, what would you be like in that world? Where would your character fit in? Would you be on the ship? It kind of opens the door for people who like cosplaying or the fan writing, that they want to put themselves in it. And one of the things I've noticed with TV shows, because I used to watch a lot of soap opera, is when you've got storylines you want to move forward, you change the characters from their core beliefs and values. He just doesn't do that with this show. He writes the characters first. It's almost like he defined them, and they can grow and evolve as they relate to one another and become a family on the ship, because that's really, they become a family on the ship. But whatever scenario he puts them in, whatever the plot is that he's creating, they're reacting and responding in that character. Their character doesn't change unless it's an organic evolution of the person in response to what's going on and how they're interacting with each other.
There's no gratuitous, just, for the sake of a dramatic moment, I'm going to make this person do this crazy thing because it's sci-fi and I can justify it. You're right. And I agree with all those things. It's the characters, it's the world building, it's the but I want to add one more element. I think it's the writing as well. The dialogue is snappy, it's funny, it's just so clever, it's on point. I was watching the premiere episode, what should have been the premiere episode. We can talk about that if we want to. It was called Serenity, not to be confused with the movie called Serenity. And the pacing was incredible. They put so much into just that 2-part episode, and everything fit, and it didn't feel rushed, and everything just boom, boom, boom. And we got the Reavers, we got Inara, we got introduced to 9 characters.
Yeah, Dom, I think you're totally on point. I watched that the other day thinking this is a nearly perfect pilot. I mean, this lays so much groundwork in a way that doesn't feel like it's laying groundwork. It feels like a fun action adventure with these people that I want to spend more time with right now.
Right.
And what you guys said about world building, when you match, and I heard somebody else say the other day, and it sounds so highfalutin. It was like specificity is the soul of narrative. Maria, have you heard that before?
No, but I want to steal it.
All right. So, but think about, simply the language, not just how snappy the dialogue is, but the way, the turn of phrases that Joss Whedon is able to use, that is, it's almost a shortcut to depth, and it comes off as insanely clever when somebody like Matthew or Nathan Fillion says it, right? Combine that with the world building of the Chinese influence of the world and the future of using Chinese as curse words, right?
Right.
And then you have all these sort of visual touches that lead us to understand this strange thing that's happened in the past. Whatever's happened has this insanely Chinese influence over it, right? And what we know about the world today, and not just in the modern geopolitics, but maybe he was prescient in this sort of 20 years ago, being able to see the enormous Asian influence that was going to be. You know what I mean? So it creates not just a world, and here's the real beauty of it. It creates mythos.
Right.
From what has happened to the galaxy. Like, to make it this way, it's supposed to look like Star Trek, and instead it looks like the Old West, combined with that cultural influence that we're not quite ready for when we start the first episode, combined with things like the Reavers. I mean, that is perfect mythos to build in right there in your pilot, and an unreasonable villain,
right?
Like an unreasonable, malevolent force that is going to cause havoc. And that is the perfect narrative device that lays the groundwork for later on. And eventually obviously the movie, it plays a huge part in. But man, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, the Reavers are right.
Well, they pull off the great.
They pull off the great.
Yeah, they pull off the great villain in the Reavers.
Right.
They failed in other sci-fi shows. They fail. I know that there was some Reaver-like. There was a Reaver-like villain in Voyager that was like, the flesh-eating people or whatever.
The Vidians they try. Star Trek tried over and over again to have that great villain. I mean, I remember we just talked about this in Secrets of Star Trek. The Encounter at Farpoint, the first episode of Next Generation, we're introduced to that cannibalistic, perhaps strange alien race, the Ferengi, we're supposed to be afraid of. I mean, if there was ever a more clownish comic villain, but here, I mean, there are multiple bad guys here. Of course, there's the Alliance that are bad guys. Yeah. There are gangsters that are bad guys. We'll eventually get Nishka, the Blue Hands, the Blue Hand guys. Mm-hmm. But they're
again with the mythology. I mean, that's great.
But but as Mac, as you point out, the Reavers, they just kind of exist out there as this almost animalistic, chaotic force that just is kind of
somehow managed to master space travel.
But they have more depth than just that. They're evil personified, but not just evil. They're the evil within. They're man.
Right.
Morphed into Reavers.
Yeah,
and that's the most terrifying thing. It's like there's this whole inner evil that could just come out and there'd be nothing good left. And they talk about that in different episodes. I mean, or maybe it's the movie. I haven't rewatched the movie yet.
It does come out in the movie. The whole origin of the Reavers is the sort of the crux of the movie, and gives us the crux of what's going on with River, which I want to come back to because I want to talk about the characters. But first, maybe I think we should talk about just how, just quickly, how Fox screwed up this TV series that could have been great. That should have canceled it. Yeah, 7 seasons. It should have been 7 seasons.
We're all bidders, so I think that's going to be a good discussion.
So one of the things that they did was they said that they wanted Whedon to change Mal because in the pilot he was too dark and dour. They wanted to make him more joy-filled, which kind of missed the point. And then they were upset that the show focused on the poor people who are suffering from the effects of the policymakers. They wanted the show to focus on the policymakers, the Federation presidents sort of stuff. And
because that worked out so well in the Star Wars prequels. Go ahead.
Exactly, which were going on at that time. And then so they meddling within the making of the show, and Whedon wouldn't go with it, obviously, which I'm grateful. But then the crowning jewel of their idiocy was they aired it out of order. Instead of having the pilot be the first episode, that they decided that the train job was much more fun and light and would attract an audience much better than this dour Serenity premiere that actually tells you everything you need to know about the show. And so we kind of start with Train Job, and it's all out of order. They kind of mix everything up, and then we don't get to the pilot until like the 11th episode. And I remember watching it going, wait a minute, well, don't they already, like, what is this? Is a flashback? Like, why are we seeing this? And it confused the audience. It aired in a bad time slot. I mean, just Fox. I think this was like the second time that Fox had totally messed up a sci-fi series. The one before that, which was actually about 5 or 6 years before that, was Space Above and Beyond, another show that was like this. It was about Marines, U.S. Marines in space in war, and it was dark. It had combat, guys suffering from combat PTSD. Thank you. And other issues like that. And it was dark and it was heavy, but it was firmly in the sci-fi, and they totally ruined it. And they ended up canceling it too soon. Maybe they've gotten better over the years, but this was, I think, the height of Fox totally screwing up post X-Files, floundering about trying to figure out what they were doing. I mean, that's my take on it.
Just goes to show that you don't let the suits make the decisions. You let the producers and the actors and the director, the person who created the show, make the decisions.
Well, it should have been apparent when the suits came in and they were wearing blue gloves that they needed to keep their hands off this. Not going to work out well for anyone.
Where was River?
Cannibalizing the episodes.
Right. Oh, yeah. I should have unleashed the River's
on the outside.
Yeah.
Did y'all watch it in its original run?
I did.
I did. I did. I remember watching the train heist one and going, "Oh, well, this could be interesting. Did I miss something?"
Exactly the same. Yeah.
You too? You had the same experience?
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
It's funny. I had a friend go see the movie and she was telling me about it, and I was at the library and saw the novelization, and I didn't want to read the book until I sort of then found out there was this TV series. So I started getting the TV series and watching it first before I would watch the movie, because I figured the movie would tie or wrap things up. But until then, I didn't even know the story. I didn't know it had already been canceled. I didn't know. So I picked it up after the movie had been in theaters.
Interesting.
So then you really had that. No.
Yes,
moment.
I had a
right?
total no moment.
All
And
I
then-
knew. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Also, I have it on DVD. I don't have it digitally. So this homework was a challenge for me because I had to get the littlest kid in bed and still be awake enough to sit on the couch and try and watch it, and with work and everything going on. I was like, okay, I got to sit down and watch. I gotta watch Firefly. I can't wait to watch Firefly. All the teenagers, get out of this room. I need this one room. It's the only room with a DVD player still in it.
Gosh. All I knew about it was that show where people had pistols and with the weird looking spaceship.
Right.
And it was on, and I was doing other things in life at that. I think I was a first year teacher around that time. But anyway, so I had no time for that. And then we caught up on it on DVD later on, and it was just fantastic. But speaking, that kind of brings me to one of the points that I wanted to talk about is these shows, creature design / production design is such a strange thing to get wrong or right. And why this works, I have no idea. The same thing about the Star Trek production design. Like, there's something so iconic about Star Trek ships. This humongous disc sitting forward with these big engines in the back. It looks like it shouldn't stand upright. And I bet you if you took one of the models and set it upright, it would fall over, right?
Right.
And there's something about the design of this ship. And it kind of looks like a Firefly. It's got this butt end that's kind of bulbous and, lights up. But there's something so wonderful. Like, there's something so crazy about the design of that ship with these engines that on the first episode, when they do that crazy Ivan thing, you go, oh, that's so great. Like, I have a keychain that's got Serenity on the end of the keychain, and it fell off long ago.
Really?
And now it sits outside my office with my other little Metal Earth figures. But like, the neck of the ship is so like muscular, and it's just such an odd, wonderful looking design of a vessel. And that is so key. Like, that itself, it is a character in the show.
I was just about to say that. It's like the Millennium Falcon or your Star Trek ship, the Enterprise.
Exactly.
It is a character. It is alive. They refer to it as if it's a real person or a real part of the family. I mean, Kaylee, when she's not moving, and you think she's talking about Zoe in one episode, one scene, and she's not. She's talking about her ship. Right. And it's the way she relates to it.
When they designed it, Joss...
Did you see
Go ahead.
I loved the scene in the train episode when Serenity is flying up above the train, and you have this contrast of this. They're both in the future, but you got the past and the future going on there, and it's really visually very, very beautiful to see.
What Joss Whedon has talked about how he designs the ship, he was very intentional about where things were located, and that everything in the design was true from the exterior. So the layout, every place you see on that ship is thought out where it exists within the design we see on screen in the model. And so he wanted to make sure that every time they shot something, it felt true, that they were going to an actual place on the ship. But also the way the different parts of it, the dorm where the passengers live, where Book and River and Simon live, and then the common area, which is the sort of the dining room where the family gathers for a meal, and all of these different places within the ship. Everything had a reason for being where it was and what kinds of things would take place in those spaces. And I think that's one of the things that lends something to the show, that makes the ship part of the show, part of as a character, because it feels real. It feels important that that is where things are and that things take place here.
And that touches on the world building and the wonderful balance of specificity with sci-fi. Like, you can't explain everything, like gravity. They never try to explain how their ship has gravity, and that's fine. But they do show Mal using the toilet and then flipping the toilet up and pulling the sink out, you know, and still having room to move around. And, it shows Kaylee's Christmas light that she has around her hatch. And it shows her climbing down into the hatch. So you're right, that specificity of knowing geographically where everything is on the ship is wonderful. And you think about a show like The Office. I was probably in season 7 of The Office before I realized the geographical location of the annex. Like, it's somewhere back there, but where's the kid? Like, where's Toby's cubicle in comparison with the kitchen? Like, it never really made sense to me. But you go through 5 minutes of Firefly and you know where everything on that ship is.
Right.
But didn't they film that? Wasn't the ship set to scale? Wasn't it a full set piece where you had the whole ship?
Yes, they had the whole ship at all times. So usually, like say in Star Trek, they have a bridge set, and then they walk across to the other side of the soundstage, and then there's a corridor that's totally disconnected, and then they have another, and they rebuild it to make a holodeck and all that sort of stuff, and nothing is really connected. But Whedon wanted to make sure that he knew that it would change the way they played the characters and played the show if they could walk around in the ship as it exists. So they built it to scale on the soundstage, which is one of the reasons why the ship is such a small ship, is because it had to fit inside a soundstage. And so they built all the sets as permanent setups, and which was a challenge for them filming it, because usually a film crew, they can take big parts of it down and put up lights and cameras and all this other stuff. Well, they didn't have that option. It was more like they were filming in a house or or office building like that, where you had to deal with the space that you have. And yeah, I think that adds a lot to it, but by the fact that the actors feel like they're in the place that they're pretending to be in. I think it's just brilliant. It's one of those reasons why I think this show just had that something special.
I think I read somewhere also that the crew used to actually hang out in the lounge in between takes. So
yes.
it became very much a home, not just a set. It became alive again. Right.
Let's talk about the characters. Let's start with Captain Malcolm Reynolds right off the bat. And he's a brown coat, which is he was one of the rebels. You had the plucky outer systems, independent-minded settlers who wanted to throw off the shackles of the inner planets, the wealthy, not connected to what's going on out there, to the people who are scrabbling just to get by. And they had a rebellion, and he was part of that rebellion. And what I like about him is that he was on the losing side. Like for Mal, it seems like life is a long defeat. No matter how much he gets or what success he has, it's never really enough, because he knows he's never really going to succeed enough where he can just be happy with what he's got, because he's always waiting for something that the other shoe to drop for him to lose it, have it taken away, or what have you. And so that's one aspect of his character. But the other aspect is, even though this is where the Han Solo comparisons come in. He's a man of honor in a den of thieves. He has certain moral standards. Yeah, he's a smuggler. Yeah, he's a thief. Yeah, he'll shoot a guy if he needs to. But he has certain moral code.
Here's the moral code. That ain't right. Somebody tries to kill you, you try to kill him right back.
Oh, I don't know. He didn't go in. He was still willing to go meet. What was her name? The one who didn't she try to kill you, sir?
Saffron. Oh, no. Patience.
Patience. Thank you.
Why is everybody making a fuss? Yeah, she tried to shoot me. So what?
Yeah,
I like that when River first meets him, she defines his name. She says Mal, bad, from the Latin. Yeah. And it's not. And he's not a bad guy.
Exactly.
He's a good guy.
Right. I mean, he should
be in a white coat, not a brown coat. No, sorry, bad.
And he's
failed joke there.
Yeah.
Narratively, it's a brilliant idea to give you a perpetual underdog.
Yes.
And that extends to the whole crew, really. But obviously the central figure is Mal.
And then we have Zoe, who was a sergeant and she was his corporal, and they were both at this battle of the Serenity Valley, which was the defining losing battle for their side. And he names the ship after this low point in life, where they lost, definitively lost this war. And there's Zoe, and the thing I love about Zoe is she's intensely loyal to Mal. She's she will follow him to the gates of hell and back, but she's also married to Wash, the pilot, and there's that tension in her.
Okay. Please, let me talk.
Of course.
This is why I think of this as like a near perfect pilot, and I think this could be used to teach screenwriting and especially character development because of the dynamics. You want to introduce a group of characters with dynamics and this backstory that sets the stage. Because think about what you said. You got Mal, all right, that loss at the Battle of Serenity sets him up as your perpetual underdog. It establishes the loyalty of Zoe. It also establishes Mal's chip that he has on his shoulder about faith in God.
Yes.
Which is perfect because you're going to introduce a character of faith. So you've got tension going on there. Then, coupled with that, you've got Zoe the badass, right, who falls and is married to, and you don't even need the courtship to believe the relationship to he's not the Joey character, but he's brilliant, right?
Yes.
Truly talented. You got Wash, who is so stinking funny, played by the brilliant, is it Alan Tudyk?
Alan Tudyk, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Alan Tudyk.
Who has never told an untruth and never not made me laugh on screen, right? And so there's a natural, and I don't know if Maria, maybe you can help me out. It's not necessarily a tension. It's a subversion, really. I don't know what you'd call it. That dynamic between Zoe and Wash, that narratively it shouldn't fit, but it totally does.
I would absolutely call it a tension because it provides more in the undercurrent that you get of Wash's insecurity about the relationship that Mal and Zoe have. And it comes out every once in a while. And later in the series you see it more, but it's human, and that's what I mean about loving these characters is that there's everything about them is plausible.
Yes,
everything about them is believable. The setup about we didn't need to see their courtship to believe that they're married is so true, but it's so true of all the other characters, and it doesn't have to make sense because the thing about fiction is that it doesn't actually have to be real. It's actually easier for it not to be real, and we still find it plausible. Real life is crazier.
Right.
But you look at these characters and you think that's insane. How is it possible for these characters to come together and gel as a family? And it's because the writing is plausible. They're believable, and we fall in love with them. I mean, all of them could be my friends. I would love to be their friends. I would have loved to have been in any one of their scenarios. And so when you can step into the storyline and imagine yourself in it, I mean, you've got a hit.
Yes. And they're all wonderfully flawed characters.
Exactly.
Because they're individual human beings.
Yes, and
they're not written perfect.
And I hadn't really thought about it until now. You guys have probably totally wrapped your heads around this, but the entire, not just the premise of the show, but almost every single character in the show, it's all built on a subversion of expectations.
Yes.
I mean, it's sci-fi, but it's retro sci-fi, right?
Right.
Mal's a captain of the ship, but he's like you said, he's a man of honor in a den of thieves. Zoe and Wash shouldn't make sense, but they do. You've got among the most brilliant people in the universe is completely broken because of what has been done to her, right? And you've got a pretty unlikable character in the Doctor who you feel for because all he wants to do is to keep someone safe. And then you've got Inara and Mal, and then you've got class. You've got statements about class between the Doctor, who Mal constantly makes fun of because of his soft hands and paley complexion and all this stuff, right? And obviously moneyed with against Mal. And then there's the Inara factor, where she is cultured and she's elegant, but frankly she's a whore. So it's
Right.
all of these subversive.
Oh, you can't say
You
that.
can't
You're
call
not
her
supposed
that.
to call her that. You can't call her that.
She's a
That
prostitute.
was in her contract.
That was it. That's right. But you're also missing Kaylee. Now that
Kaylee.
I think about
Yeah.
it, that's in
Simon.
contrast. Kaylee and Simon is the same kind of messy contrast that Inara and Mal are.
Yes.
Well,
And
even
Ka-
Kaylee.
Don't you think?
Kaylee and
Kaylee's
herself.
this-
Yeah.
Yeah, Kaylee herself.
Kaylee is a mess.
She's
Well,
this image of innocence, but she ain't innocent. You know what I'm saying? And
Oh
she's,
no, that's yes.
But she's also
Well,
she's,
she ended up on the ship. She ended up on the ship because she was there with the other guy.
she's wise beyond her years, though, when it comes to mechanics.
right. She's a sweet, innocent, happy-go-lucky, always positive, always loving, and she's Scotty. Like she could take the ship apart and rebuild it with her bare hands. I mean, she again undermining your expectations. I mean, if there's anybody like Shepherd Book is the man of faith with a past who apparently is a lot more capable of things that and recognizes things that Mal can do that more than you realize. The only one that really you kind of wonder about is Jane. Like, how does Jane fit in all this? Like, does anybody
Jane does not subvert expectations.
Jane is what he is.
Jane is what he is.
Although later on he gets.
Can I tell?
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to dial it back and tell. I came up with a literary thing that you were searching for earlier, Mac. They represent the dichotomy of the human condition. The both and.
The both.
How do you like
and.
that?
That is deep.
The both and. Yeah.
Shiny.
Yeah.
Shiny.
Shiny. I was shooting for the head, but
one of my favorite scenes with Zoe that really I think personifies her relationship with the captain and with her husband is the episode, I can't remember the name, but where they've both been taken.
War Stories.
And we won't go into the details, right?
Yeah.
But there's a scene where she walks in, and there's always tension between her and Wash about her unwavering faith and devotion and loyalty to Mal, because Wash doesn't know. He wasn't in the battle. He wasn't there. He can't know. And for the record, Mal didn't lose in the Battle of Serenity. Mal was winning.
Right.
And the angels were coming to save them. The angels were coming to finally, put the screws to the alliance, and this was going to be their victory moment. And that's when they got the call. He was betrayed. Command says it's too hot. They're going to pull out, and you have to lay down arms. And he's like, "Are you kidding me? I'm winning. We're winning." And so it was an ultimate betrayal for him. He has no grounding anymore. He's been against the alliance. The rebellion or the independence has betrayed him. And the only one who has stood by him is Zoe. But anyway, there's that scene where she goes in and they've got both Mal and Wash, and they're like, you can only have one of them. And she doesn't even hesitate. I don't even think she takes a breath. It's the most brilliant moment. And after all these years since I've seen that episode, it's the one that I always come back to when I think of the relationship of Zoe and Mal and Wash.
Yeah. There's not even a hesitation in who she chooses.
No.
And it subverts the expectation that you have of most TV where she's going to agonize. Nope.
No agonize. And that's what's great about some of these characters. They don't agonize. Jane, he'll think about it. He'll take, well, is the money right? Do I get my own room? But Mal, when he walks on the ship, I mean, he's got that code of conduct. He's a man of honor, we've said, but he'll watch. He's real steady. He's very savvy. But when he makes up his mind, it's done. He walks on that ship and the feds, the federal guy Dobson is there. He doesn't even hesitate. He just looks, sizes it up. Boom, it's done. We keep moving on.
Right.
And there's so much about Mal's character explained when in that last conversation with Simon in what should have been the pilot, that episode first, because it tells you who he is. If I kill you, you're going to be standing up, holding a gun, facing me. You'll know it. There's no sneaking about. I'm very direct. What you see is what you get.
There's that great scene that, again, where you show Mal is kind of the father of this crew because it's a family. And Whedon has very clearly said this is a show about a family. And there's a great moment in the pilot where they're sitting around the table and Jane makes a crack at Kaylee, who's sort of mooning over Simon. And Mal just tells him, you best walk away. In his best Southern dad voice, "You best walk away from this table." And very doesn't threaten him, doesn't say anything. And Jane, who, you know, is the heavy, he walks away because he knows where he stands in this. And it's a great character moment where less was more. It doesn't have to be bluster. You don't have to say lots. You just less was more. Let's talk about, we'll come back to Jane a little bit, but let's talk about Shepherd Book. When he's introduced, he tells him, I've come from Southdown Abbey. I've decided to go out and see the world again. See the various worlds, and he has these moral qualms about falling in with thieves. The first time we see him, he's kind of wandering on the docks looking for a ship that'll carry him out, and Kaylee says to him, "You're going to travel with us." And he's like, "Oh, and why would that be?" Because you're not looking at where the ships are going. You're looking at the ships themselves. And there's something to Book. There's something to Shepherd. And he's a mystery. And I don't know that I'm trying to remember now if we don't get his background. Yeah. No, I don't think we ever got that. The one hanging piece that I just hate that he never expounded on. Who was Shepherd Book, and what was his role before he went to the Abbey? Right.
Yeah,
what
but
drove him there?
Do you really hate it? That's what's wonderful.
I hear what you're saying, but
there's that great conversation,
and I hear what you're saying. Because you still got that all open, but
there's a lot of both and in there. He's got a heck of a past.
Well, yes. And even the name.
I wasn't always a shepherd.
I mean, even the name is his name. Like, is that a title? So I guess shepherd is a title,
right? Like pastor
at the time, right? Yeah. But Shepherd Book, right? In Christianity and Islam and Judaism, they're all religions of the book. So in a name, you're sending a cultural reference to the audience who's listening, even if they don't realize it. There's something deep inside us that knows that this isn't a mamby-pamby. This isn't like a pseudo-religion or some new agey thing. We're talking old school religion with this dude, right? Not only visually. I mean, obviously he's wearing
clerics.
Yeah. And then the name, right? And then obviously we see him reading scripture sometimes. And so it's a wonderful character, and a character that never betrays his faith. And there's an image that is not betrayal, but I think is problematic in that first pilot that maybe we'll get to later. But he's a great character. And not only that, but you see him lifting weights. You see him taking action. He's not just sitting around praying all the time.
Right.
So it's a fantastic character.
And he's also flawed. But I also want to talk about a flaw. Well, I don't know that it's a flaw, but that he struggles with the faith too, which I found really compelling. And it was very early. I was in one of the first few episodes, maybe. I can't remember which one, but he's talking to Inara about.
That's what I'm referring to.
About the other. That's what and he says he doesn't want to pray for Mal because, how would Mal take it? And Inara turns around and says, "I pray for him all the time. You don't have to tell him."
Well, and that's part of it. And that also in that bigger scene, he comes to her saying, "I think I've made a mistake. I've fallen in with criminals, and I've only been here 2 days, and I've laid hands on a man, and violence and all this stuff." And visually, it shows him kneeling down and her reaching out a hand and ministering to him.
Yeah.
Okay, now, Joss, I get this whole thing is about subversion of expectations. But this one, and maybe it's because I'm a man of faith, this one feels so deliberately, not untrue, but deliberately subversive, like an adolescent trying to curse to impress his parents. Like there's just something that really was against the grain with me in that imagery, like such deliberate imagery too. Like even they just do it in silhouette. It's like her ministering to the preacher.
Yeah. Like, well, Whedon's use of light is magnificent. And we could, if we do this long term, it would be worth looking at certain scenes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm betting. I'll bet the bank you've seen Dr. Horrible.
Yes.
His use of light and dark in that little series was beautifully done. And so I guess you're right, but I don't know. I had a different takeaway from that, Mac. I really thought that it showed that he was human, mm-hmm. and was failing in that moment. And it also shows Inara's great love and deep humanity. We don't associate that with we're not supposed to call her a whore, but a courtesan or whatever they call her in the show. But
companion.
I liked it. Companion.
Registered.
I really liked it. Registered.
So I think one of the things that scene kind of conveys is that grace comes in from unexpected directions many times. That we expect it always to come from preacher on down. And I mean, I don't know whether Whedon intended it. It could have been an adolescent like fingering of thumbing his nose at religion, because Whedon is famously not a religious person. But I think maybe there unintentionally it came across as like grace can come from an unexpected direction from the prostitute to the preacher at times, because even the preacher needs ministering, and when his faith is failing, hers wasn't. And again, it's that subversion. You don't expect her to be someone who prays, and yet here she is. She admits it, that she prays for Mal. I mean, there's this. I mean, we haven't even talked about the relation between Inara and Mal. This tension where everyone. I mean, it's the one thing that sort of feels like a bit of a trope, which is everyone knows they really like each other, and that they're using this barbed language to kind of hide it. That's something we have seen a lot. But even in this, the repartee is clever. It creates a bit of tension, and over time it resolves a little bit, not completely, but we do get a little bit of a movement in the relationship. So I'll give him a pass on that. But it's a great tension relationship. Like the man of honor who is the thief, and the woman of ill repute who actually has the heart of gold, and them trying to deal with it.
She's not a woman of ill repute, though. That's what's interesting about this world. In this world, she is not a woman of ill repute. She is a companion. She brings respectability to this ship. She is honored and respected and revered in a lot of these different worlds. In
certain circles, I have to point out, in the high class or the upper class or the wealthy circles, she's respected.
But just like in the Star Wars universe, and I guess Star Trek too, but we're on the outer rim of the civilized world. So It's got a whole different structure and class and culture out there, because even Book is like, is this what life is like out here? Out here being the outer rim of planets where they've been terraformed. And I think they introduced that in the pilot. They terraform them, and then they drop a couple of, like basically colonists and some cattle and some supplies and say, good luck, vaya con Dios, But they, just like when they colonized the New World and they would bring over single women to marry when they were settled, the French did it in French Canada. They bring over the women to help them colonize and settle the land. That's a little different from what Inara's doing. That's not what they're bringing Inara and the companions out there for, but it's kind of like they're bringing them out there, and they're meeting that basic need, but they're doing it with a little bit of civilization, class, culture. They're refined. It makes them feel like they're back in those civilized central worlds again.
Inara is doing most of her business in the inner worlds where it's wealthy, and not so much in those poor, hard scrabble outer worlds. They do encounter women doing that out there in one of the not so great episodes.
There's more to Inara though, because they make reference to it, but we never really learn it. She has gone out on her own. She's trapped. That's the first thing that I thought of again when I watched her renting the shuttle, her being on that shuttle, and she's trapped. All her business is done in the shuttle. She's not in a home. She's not, she doesn't actually align herself with any one person, although many try to buy her and keep her. She's always on the shuttle. She wants her freedom, but at the same time, I get the impression that she's cocooned herself, so to speak. But she's cut ties. She's separated, kind of like Book. Book has left the Abbey and gone out into the world, and he's pulled away and separated from his foundational training and belief too.
Well, isn't that true that everyone in this pretty much has cut ties to their life? And are, and it's to each other that they bond themselves. I mean, that's very true here. Like whether it's Wash and Zoe and Mal and Jane, whatever his background is, and Simon and River. I mean, we really haven't talked about Simon and River yet. We probably should, because the story around River she kind of becomes a fulcrum that the story ends up revolving around a bit. She is human experiment by the Alliance scientists, and has these powers and skills that have overwhelmed her mind, and she's now schizophrenic, but yet she has these abilities, and she's both a child and yet a super soldier in some ways. And she's a bit of a chaotic element in this ship. If you think about it, I mean, everyone kind of fits in somewhere, but River kind of, she does unexpected things. Sometimes she causes problems. Sometimes she causes an unexpected solution, as we see, he was out of gas, wasn't it? Or the other one where the bounty hunter comes on board. So I mean, what do you think? I mean, of course, in the movie Serenity, it's a whole different ball of wax for River. But what do you think about this Simon and I put them together always because it's just they're inseparable. They're almost like twins in that case. But what do you think about their place in this story? I've kind of thrown that out there.
Crickets.
Well,
Simon's not my favorite character.
Yeah, in any other story, I think like the River aspect would be really fascinating. But to me, that what is supposed to be like the central mystery of the show pales in comparison to the characterizations of the rest of the family members. And then, right, as I said earlier, I mean, Simon is not a particularly likable character. And I think they try to soften him up as they develop his relationship with Kaylee, but you still don't really like him that much. I mean, he cares for his sister, and that endears him to the hearts of audiences a little bit. They do a better job in the movie, I think, with getting you to like him more. Because you actually see him in action, rescuing River.
He kind of
Jane tries to get rid of them.
That's true.
Right.
Jane tries to get rid of them.
Yeah. And every opportunity.
And then gets caught in a and then in that one episode when they were on the when they were stealing the medical stuff so that Simon could do the testing on her.
Ariel.
Ariel. He gets busted by Mal in a really bad way. Right. And I think that we see a real interesting dynamic in there, but the bottom line, and we can talk about that later when we're talking about Jane, but nobody wants them. They're curious. They're different. They're too much. They're, and plus he started off his whole relationship on the ship lying and hiding her. Who hides a person in the baggage?
Right.
He was not likable from the beginning,
and he was aloof a bit from the beginning and standoffish a bit, which you understand now why he was, because he was afraid of them finding River. But
not just that, but that it's a narrative device for you to wonder and they don't make enough of it. I mean, it's a mystery for 30 seconds who the mole is on the ship in the first episode, but they deliberately put him in such standoffish and kind of a jerk, so that you think it's him. Right. But again, that they waste the device because it only lasts 30 seconds, and you set up a character who's not that likable. So as I said, it's a near perfect pilot, but to me, that's the biggest flaw of the whole thing.
And then Fox ruined it by showing this
he's snooty.
After we knew that he was, he's a snob.
He represents that upper crust, upper elite, upper class. He's, brilliant and smart and a surgeon in one of the, central planets. And he's never been out on the outer rim. And now
he's out of water, right? Yeah.
Right. So he represents they don't know anything about probably him, and he has no idea. It's a culture clash. And so there's a lot of, stereotyping going on between the two, and that's what causes that tension there. And then I understand him transporting her because we don't know until much later, Blue Hands and all that, how dire the situation is. I mean, and he finally says it took him 2 years of basically everything he owned to get her out. and they put her in this cryo sleep so that he could safely get her to a place where he could awaken her gently and take care of her. He hasn't even seen or spoken to her in over 2 to 3 years, maybe 4. What she's supposed to, she went there at 14 and she's probably 17 or 18 now. And so he's trying to reunite this family, and she's completely broken, and he has no idea what they've done to her.
Yeah.
So that's why. And so here comes Mal, pops the cryo, and he's like, he really, he's afraid, and he's out of place. He is, like you said, a fish out of water.
So, Marie, you were going to mention Jane, and I like that this aspect of Jane. He's also not just a heavy, but he has dubious loyalties, shall we say, with regard to Mal. That, you know, he's loyal to a degree until maybe someone comes along with a better deal, or when his neck is on the line, and then he really steps over that line in that episode in Ariel. And yeah, we worry whether what's Mal going to do to Jane at this point, because I think by that point we're all sort of attached to him, because this is after Janetown, of course. He is now the hero of Canton,
which is a city in Georgia, by the way,
and my hometown that I grew up in Massachusetts. So we're worried about him, but it's an interesting, again, yet another interesting. He's not a throwaway character. There's something interesting about Jane, even in this, even as often as he plays the guy who often puts out makes the suggestion in discussions that is the immoral thing or the bad thing to do or the selfish thing to do, so as to be a contrast to what Mal will eventually do. But even then, he still has a character and depth to him that endears him. I mean, people love Jane, down to the fact that
well, there's that.
Used to wear the hat
in that scene. That's right. We all like that. I think. Did you have one of those hats? I did. I think that his mom. Everybody should love their mom like that.
Yes.
But you know, it's that dichotomy again of the human condition. He's a jerk. He really is capital J jerk. And yet, in that particular scene, when Mal really rebukes him and almost kills him. That he doesn't want to know. He doesn't want the rest of the crew to know that he was the one that betrayed them.
Right.
It didn't work that way, but he did. He betrayed them. And, you know, I don't know. I just kind of felt sorry for him in that scene, that he had some remorse.
I sometimes think, like, if he had been working for, say, Badger or Nishka or something like that, one of the real bad guys, he would be an evil dude. He would easily have fallen, you know, deep into that evil lifestyle. And he's kind of lucky or graced or, you know, blessed that he's got at least someone like Mal to kind of rein him in, maybe point him in a different direction. You know, you like to think that after 5 or 10 years, whatever, with Mal, and as much time as he had with Shepherd Book, maybe it was just enough of a nudge that it saved him from something worse. I mean,
even in the first episode, when Mal says to him, he tried to buy you out, didn't he? He says, yeah. He says, well, why didn't you? He says, because the money wasn't good enough. And Mal asks him, so what happens when the money's good enough? And Jane says, in an uncharacteristically articulate way, he says, well, Mal, that will be an interesting day. And so it plants the seed in kind of a ha-ha broy way for, I will sail you down the river, and right. I am a wild card, you know?
And Mal is amused at that line, if you notice. He's kind of got that, I know it grin.
But the other part of Jane's character is that he's hilarious.
Yes.
He is truly funny. I think about, there's the scene in the movie Serenity when they've made it off that planet at the beginning, and they're throwing, he and somebody else are throwing bodies into this pit in the ship. They're going to jettison them into space. And Jane is talking about the Reavers, and he says, eating people when they're still alive. When does that get fun? That is such a funny line. Like, because you're like, you think that's when a comedian says something that you think, you know what, that's so true. Like, I've never thought that, but it's totally true to me. Or when in and Mrs. Malcolm Reynolds.
Or Mrs. Reynolds. Yeah.
Mrs. Reynolds, yeah.
Mrs. Reynolds.
When Mal is just not having a great day, and he comes out of his bunk, and there's Jane with the gun, and Mal just kind of takes a gulp, and Jane's describing the gun, and he hands it to him, says, "It's my favorite gun." I want to, and the implication is I want to trade the gun for your wife.
Is that Vera?
Is that Vera?
Is that Vera?
Now, the most brilliant part of that interaction is narratively that is laying the groundwork for the action scene at the end of the episode that gets them out of the bind. So it's like almost like nothing in this show is wasted. It is brilliantly structured to where I'm going to add a depth and a twist to this character and make it funny, but yet we're going to use it later.
Right.
So I just shake my head and I think that is why people get paid to do what they do, because they're really good at it. They're writing this stuff.
That's right.
So
right.
That's right.
So
that's my favorite episode, by the way.
Or Mrs. Reynolds. Yes. Yeah. And
listen, the dynamic between Mal and Honora at the end of that episode is so precious.
My favorite.
So precious.
Plus Christina Hendricks was just so great in both of the episodes that she appeared in here. I mean, she goes on to the bigger and better things in Mad Men after this, but this was one of her early roles, and she just kills it and as that kind of crazy character, and then the reveal, the twist that comes about, that we find out not so crazy after all. I mean, it's so good. So we probably need to bring things to a close here as we kind of close out what we're doing here. And I'm going to ask you the impossible question, but do you have a favorite episode, one that, or even just a favorite moment that stands out in the show for you? I'm asking the kind of impossible because I'm not sure I can pick a single thing. I guess one of my favorites is Out of Gas, just because it's a sort of classic story. The ticking clock. How do people behave when all hope is gone? When they when they're fighting to survive and they think that they've lost it all. How do people behave in that sort of moment? I if I had to pick one tomorrow, I'd pick a different one. But right now, I'm picking that one. Does anybody have something?
And what's great about that episode is it's sweetened, or it's seasoned rather, with this wonderful device of flashbacks.
Right.
That give you the backstory to several of the characters and their interactions with each other. And dude, Wash's mustache makes that episode worth it alone.
Oh my gosh.
Alan Tudyk with the mustache. We haven't even really talked about Wash and Alan Tudyk, how often he improvised a lot of, we talk about how great of a writer Whedon is. Tudyk makes him look great sometimes because he's improvising. That whole first scene with the dinosaurs was, curse your I always mess it up. It's one of my favorite things. Curse your
son,
you get inevitable betrayal.
Son, that's it. So
I mean,
funny.
it's such a great moment where you think he's being this very serious pilot, when you first hear his voice, and then you realize he's playing with toys on his desk on his console. We didn't really even talk that much about that aspect of Wash.
You with the bathing, me with the watching you bathe.
Do we have very much backstory on Wash other than that he came highly recommended? Was it a recommendations as long as my leg? Was that he said?
Yeah.
When Zoe says, "There's something about him I don't like, sir." Well, your something is going against recommendations, a list of recommendations as long as my leg. But we don't really. He's got some of the, like you say, just some of the greatest lines. I don't know how many of them are ad-libbed.
Right?
Oh God, we're all going to die.
Yeah, what he does in that monotone. Yeah, exactly.
And when he and Mal really start yelling at each other, Mal's like, "You got to do something. I'm doing everything I can. You got to boost the signal. I don't know what you mean. We'll amplify this. Well, what's that going to do? I mean, all it's going to do is make somebody stop and come around and have to scramble it, and then they're gonna find us and." All right, well, you don't have to be all up in my face about it.
Well, no, he ends it with, well, then maybe I should do that.
Maybe that's it. Yes.
Exactly.
So funny.
So great. So does anyone else have a favorite episode or just a moment that really stands out for them above others for the. I mean, it's an impossible task. I know.
I already told you mine. It's the moment where Zoe walks in and has to choose between Wash and Mal, and for whatever reason of all the episodes and the movie, that's the one that immediately comes to mind. It's that such a decisive moment, just not even a hesitation. Boom.
Yep.
Decision.
I have
Mrs. Reynolds was mine.
Yeah.
Mrs. Okay. Yep. Mac.
In mine, I hate to talk about a whole episode because I love all my children the same, but but there are moments that make a show stand
but differently.
out. Yeah, okay. There are moments that make a show stand out to me. Moments that like you, for some reason, you internalize and like you end up doing in your life. There's an episode where Kaylee. It's the one where she gets shot. Is it maybe? Oh, it's the pilot.
The pilot,
right? Yeah.
With the strawberries?
They move. No. They move her into the engine room, and she's trying to tell Book and Jane how to fix the engine. And there's one point where she says to Jane to do something, and he's looking everywhere, and she's pointing, and she says, Look where I'm pointing. And there's something about the way you talk to a child like that. I have literally said that to other adults in my life, and it always pays off with they realize I'm being a jackass to them. But it's so worth it, right?
That's.
But she doesn't say it like she's being a jerk to him. She's just she's such an innocent, happy. What is it? There's no power in the verse that could stop Kaylee from being cheerful. And sometimes you just want to duct tape her mouth and throw her in the hole.
That scene that same moment sort of shows up in The Force Awakens when Rey is trying to get Finn to grab the tool or the what's it's over there, and she's like,
"You're right.
There, the one I'm pointing at. That one, yes, no, that one I'm pointing at. I mean, you're right. I do this with my kids all day long.
And there's one other moment in the show that kind of perfectly encapsulates, like not necessarily what the show's about, but the vibe that you're going to get of the show and the rhythm of the show, which is it's in the train job when he's got the humongous dude tied up outside the ship, and he says, I want you to take this back to Nishka. Is that his name?
Yes.
Nishka. And tell him we didn't realize what the job was, and we're going to give him back the money. And the guy says, I would never stop searching for you. Mal's just like shakes his head and kicks him into the engine, right? And then the next guy.
That's what I mean about Mal.
And you just see the frame shot. The next guy kneels down in the frame and he says, I want you to take this back. And the guy says, take it back to Nishka. You're giving him the money back. I got it. No problem. I'll do it. That is such a funny, not just visually, but snappy writing. It's so well crafted. That is the show to me.
Right.
That's what you can expect from this show.
Oh,
he created
that's one of my
a whole
favorites.
dialect.
Well, you know what? Well, you know where the other part of it is with Kaylee and how much they have become a family. And I can't remember the episode, but they've gone shopping. And she picks up the most ridiculous dress,
the frilly dress.
Right? It was at the shindig.
Yeah,
and they celebrate her dress, and she's just, God bless her, she's just ridiculous, and they know it, and they love her for it.
I love her.
I thought that was sweet.
I love her relationship with Anara, that big sister, little sister thing they get going, and I really do. I love that.
Hey, you. That's what they say to each other. Hey, you.
Hey, you.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go on and on and on, and maybe we will because this has been so much fun, and I think we need to come back and we need to live in the Firefly universe, in the verse, for a little while longer. So maybe we can look forward to that in the near future. A Secrets of Firefly series for us, where we will go through each episode and do some of the same thing. So, but let us know if that's something you'd like to do for us to do. So let us, and are you a fan of Firefly? Did you watch it from the beginning? Is it something you picked up later? Did someone sit you down in front of a TV and said, "Look, you're going to sit here, and I'm going to show you this, and you're going to love it"? If you had any of those experiences or anything like that, let us know. Go to sqpn.com/secrets or to the SQPN Facebook page. Find the link to this show there and leave us some feedback. Write a comment or send us an email to secrets@sqpn.com and let us know what you think of the idea of doing a Secrets of Firefly series, and your experience with Firefly. Like I said before, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and remember to write a review for us. Reviews are very important for the algorithms that show people, hey, you might be interested in the show. Like it, comment on it, share it, help us to grow our audience. Until next time, Mac Barron, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Firefly.
Thanks for having me. This is so great, so fun.
Shelley Kelly, thank you.
It's been shiny.
And Maria Johnson, thank you as well.
Oh, you guys are awesome.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the secrets of movies and TV shows on StarQuest. And remember, I'm a leaf on the wind. Watch me soar. This is Dom Bettinelli again. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and that you'll help us keep producing the podcast you love. Thank you for your generosity. To make your pledge and find out about the free thank you gifts we'd like to send you, visit sqpn.com/give. That's sqpn.com/give.